Hello everyone, Squintina here, and I'm going to go over my Endwalker Black Mage controller setup. As with all my setups, this is what I personally use, but feel free to make changes. If you were using my setup last expansion, I did change around a few things to reflect some of the changes, but also some things that could have been improved upon even back then. In my setups, I favor the right side, so my left side can stay focused on movement. Black Mage has two phases, a long fire phase and a short ice phase. Since I prefer the right side, it makes sense for the longer phase to go there. That's why you see Fire 1, 3, and 4. You will also see Xenoglossy on the square button, which is where I tend to put mobility actions, and Amplifier for another Xenoglossy. Despair, which does renew Astral Fire, is also on this side. It's the only single target GCD on the D-pad. On the left side, I have the Ice phase, so Blizzard 1, 3, and 4. You will notice that Blizzard 4 and Fire 4 match up in button location, and so do Fire 3 and Blizzard 3, and then Fire 1 and Blizzard 1. Both of those will become Paradox. This should make it fairly easy to remember which ones grant Astral and Umbral 3. I also have Thunder in the mobility spot, and Sharpcast is on the left side as a reminder that ideally, Sharpcast is used to renew your instant thunder. We also have Transpose because sometimes you need to transpose. If we go into our left double-cross hotbar, we will have Swiftcast in the same location as the other magical ranged and healers. However, Black Mage doesn't have a resurrection, but it does have Triplecast, which is essentially even more Swiftcast. In the previous setup, last expansion, I did have those together. However, triple cast is so important for Black Mage that I decided it should really be on the right side instead. Rather, I have Umbral Soul in case you need to use it. It's actually somewhat well suited for this location if you think about how the other magical jobs have a resurrection spell, which does no damage, and Umbral Soul also does no damage. Mana Ward is a self-preservation ability, which I normally have at this location, and Sleep goes where the other magical ranged have it. Limit Break and consumables are in the same place as all the other jobs. The Super Potion is a placeholder. Make sure to use the appropriate tincture to increase your main stat instead. On the right double-cross hotbar, we of course have the almighty ley lines as our self-damage boost, and our jump with Between the Lines. I already mentioned triple cast earlier, and it is on the square button, which is where I prefer to put mobility actions if possible. You will notice that I have Lucid Dreaming in a different spot from the other magical range DPS and healers. Black Mage doesn't benefit from Lucid Dreaming in the same way they do. It's more of a niche use, and that spot right here is usually reserved for something that provides a meaningful resource to a job. It makes more sense to put Mana Font there since it's more meaningful to Black Mage, while still providing a similar overall effect of giving MP like Lucid does. Still, on the off chance that you end up in those rare situations where Lucid might legitimately have a use, it is available too. Addle and Surecast are in the same spots as the other jobs. Ethereal Manipulation is on the D-pad since Between the Lines is taking up the reserved spot for jump aheads. Since Ethereal Manipulation requires targeting a party member, which means you would already have your thumb on the D-pad, it makes sense for Ethereal Manipulation to end up on the D-pad as well. This takes care of the single target content. I know you're probably thinking about those macros I have on the primary. Those are Ethereal Manipulation macros, but I will talk about them more at the end. Now we go into the expanded for our AoE content. We start with our Blizzard 2 and Freeze, go into Fire 2 and then Flare. Thunder 4 is also here as well. Foul is in the mobility spot, matching Xenoglossy, and of course, if you want to get an extra polyglot, we need to have Amplifier as well. I also have Scathe here. No, it's not an AoE. And yes, for the most part, Scathe is not that useful. However, there is a legitimate use in old content being run unsynced. Let's just say, if you're doing your Aroma-born Black Mage relic as a geared max level Black Mage, and you need to do old dungeons unsynced for the Book Step, the Light Step, the Mahatma Step, and some other stuff that probably I'm not thinking of right now. You might actually go through certain dungeons faster by just spamming Scathe as you move rather than trying to use your rotation. And then you can shift to using a rotation once the dungeon forces you to stop moving. I know I used it a lot when I did mine. If you are using it for that purpose, make sure you learn to use bumper targeting for enemies, as it will make it smoother when using the expanded. Last but not least, let's talk about those ethereal manipulation macros. Yours will likely be different from mine. See, if you go to Character Configuration, UI Settings, Party List, you might notice that my party list sorting is different from yours. This is done on purpose, and let me show you an illustration for both what I have and the standard setup. For DPS, I use DPS Healer Tank. Within the DPS, melee are first, then range. Pretty standard right here. This makes it easier to access melee DPS for my Dragon's Dragon side, and also for my Black Mage for any manual ethereal manipulation, as they would be accessible with very few button presses. Healers and tanks are equal to get to in both setups, just in different order. Either way, it goes tank, tank, healer, healer, just going down for standard and going up for mine. And in alliance raids, it goes tank, healer, healer either way. So the main benefit is the access to melee DPS if that's something you're into. But because I use this order, it does change the ethereal manipulation macros because I set those up to go to a healer. In the light party, this is the same for the standard order, and my order is number 3. But in a full party, it does change. On a standard setup, your healers are going to be either 4 and 5 or 3 and 4. Whereas for me, because I use a different order, it will be 5 and 6 or 6 and 7. And that is why I have a macro on the left side that says 3 for spot number 3, which is a light party healer. And on the right is for raids and trials, with 2 options to go to healers. Of course, you can make any other ethereal manipulation macros you need. You still have a free spot available too if you need another one. If you need even more, you can probably get rid of the one for light party. I pick healers because I just trust healers more to do mechanics, especially in content with random people. And then the double cross hotbar is for doing it manually in case I learned the hard way that the healers don't know mechanics, or if I'm doing content with atypical parties like Bosnia. Before I sign off, I do want to mention again that you can and should adjust based on your needs. For example, since my builds favor the right side, if you find yourself having trouble checking Swiftcast cooldown, you may wish to switch its location with Lucid Dreaming or one of the ethereal manipulation macros. While it's great to use the same location across multiple jobs, it is okay to make a change if you find it useful. And that's it for the Black Mage setup. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you all for the next video. Bye bye!